All right. Welcome to our Friday Flex. This is Keith Joseph, and we are on our third week with Friday Reflections. Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day. Please thumbs up if you can hear us well. Hopefully, you can hear us well. If you can, just give us a thumbs up. so, um, Today we're going to talk about mental maps and also sound vibration. So, as you know, the flex concept or the reflection concepts are things that we've read in different, whether secular, non-secular fields, technologies that we want to help incorporate in everyday kind of dealings on a personal level and also societal level. So the first part of today's discussion will be about mental maps. So we understand how back in the day, when I was growing up, there were maps that you can use to get you to certain locations. And the maps, depending on how new your map was, that's how quickly or efficiently you can get to a location. And so now, of course, we don't use the paper maps. We use GPS, we use Google Maps, we use all these other types of maps to get us to point A to point B. So the mind is also a mapping system as well, because when we experience something, that gets put on our destination, or that gets put on a little marker, like a rest stop or trauma stop, or all these different types of indicators allow us to know, okay, where exactly we are on our destination. And so the goal of a map is to get you to where you're supposed to be. Unfortunately, society, we don't really know where we're supposed to be, so we have all these little marks on the map, and it's kind of all over the place. So you may encounter people just kind of all over the place. That's because their mental map's kind of off. And even if some people may not be all over the place, but they're in one area of their life, they may seem to not really have things together. It's because that mental map is difficult for them to navigate through. So in order to adjust our mental map, we have to, emotions, before I go to how to adjust it, these emotions or feelings are what gives an indicator to the location of the map in our mind. And as we travel in a particular situation, whether it's in a relationship with a partner, or it's a family member, or it's some non-secular thing in a church or something like that, or a mosque, we may have little indicators that we put in different locations. And these indicators, depending on what our experience was, allows us to revisit that location again. And sometimes we may be on a map or going somewhere and we remember, oh, I didn't really have a good time there, so maybe I shouldn't go there. Or we go somewhere else, like, oh yeah, I had a really good time there. And these experiences are logged, and the more we log them, the deeper they become. So we have this, instead of having to look at the map, we just kind of autopilot. And this autopilot idea is what happens to the majority of us. In conversations, we go on autopilot when somebody's just kind of talking, and we're not really focused, because maybe that person is constantly talking about negativity, or that person is constantly gossiping, or we may just be really engaged because this person is saying something very sweet to us. But our definition of sweet depends on each person. So what kind of thoughts, mental maps come up whenever you hear about this concept in NLP?
Excuse me. A lot of times when I reflect upon mental maps and how, as human beings, as we're navigating through our day, through our week, and so forth, how, again, the thought that comes to my mind is if something was not pleasurable, maybe it could have been an experience that I may have had with another person. Just like you gave an example of if there was a specific rest stop or pit stop or something that wasn't, pleasurable, how we try to avoid things. And so I remember when I was younger, just to give a quick example, how when it came to writing a paper and just putting one together, a small essay when we were younger, how due to whatever little traumas that I may have had through learning how to read, causing such a fear. So then my mapping was detour and try to avoid it. So then you would find, I would have found myself either procrastinating, and then that was not pleasurable either. And so, in short, after going through enough trauma or even stress and frustration, you start realizing, no, I need to figure out how to resolve this.
Yeah.
So it's not either unpleasurable or whatever it may be, and how to overcome such situations. So yeah, when it comes to mental maps, seeing how to actually properly navigate things is
Yeah, sometimes we have to take the street route, or we may have to take a detour down the street route or something like that. Yeah. So the beauty with maps is that there's always, generally, there's different ways to go down a location. Sometimes maybe a scenic route, sometimes maybe an efficient route. But the more kind of paths that are created, the more ways you can get to that location. So this is on a mundane, this is on a just geographical level when we're talking about driving, but in our mind, we have the same ability to create an alternative route to get to that destination with, to make it a little faster, or we can also make it a little slower. But because the mind is like the most efficient Google Maps, we have the ability to look at, okay, this is how long it's going to take to get here, or this is, we can actually see where the traffic is, or where there's an accident. And sometimes the really cool thing about that is if we can see, oh, there's an accident, then maybe I don't need to take this route. So similarly, in our mind, we can see, oh, this is when that very negative thing happened, so I don't have to either deal with that person, or I can somehow or another effectively create a situation where I can still have the desired result and overcome whatever the traffic stop was, whatever the accident was. And so having this ability to do so is going to be the key in us being able to travel places faster or getting to our desired destination. And so there's always these software updates we see on our phone. Upgrade to the newest version. And so when we upgrade to the newest version, we're supposed to experience I think it's Waze. There's the app called Waze where it'll tell you, hey, there's a police up front, so many miles ahead, be alert. So these notifications can also be our friends, our associates, people that we're close to that actually have our best interest that tell us like, hey, I noticed you keep doing this particular thing. Why do you do that? You may want to be careful of that. That's that notification that we get that, oh, maybe you need to do something a little different, or maybe you need to slow down. And so this is why it's always really good to have a good map, and also people that help you get to where you're going, and they don't have any selfish motives in order to get anything from you, but they actually your legitimate well-wisher. And so this is why I encourage everyone to upgrade your mapping system, so that you can have the newest technology or mental maps, I should say, and allow yourself to be empowered by knowing, okay, so I can recognize where this accident was in my mind or where this traffic is in my mind where I literally have to stop before I do anything. And sometimes we stop ourselves unnecessarily from a good situation. And those types of backups are really hurting us in the end because we're, as they say, passing up blessings. And so I think it's going to be very important to note that when we are in a people depend on us, they need us to make better decisions. And if our maps, our mental maps are insufficient, then if we have any leadership role, then we're potentially going to lead people down the wrong path because of our mental maps not having the best kind of navigation. And so with this terrible navigation, we're ruining people's lives. But with a good map, then we allow ourselves to navigate properly and we can help others navigate. Especially when you upgrade your map and you notice, oh, this is normally where there's trauma. I've experienced this. Or this is normally where there's an accident. And we can, I say, oh, so if I go this way this time, then at this moment, there's generally a traffic stop. And then we think, we can tell somebody, hey, around this time, at this moment, there's generally a traffic stop. Or if you hang around this person too long, you're going to experience the negativity, or they're going to do something to you that's going to hurt your feelings. Right. Something along those lines. And this is why it's great to be in a position where you have the technology in order to help yourself go somewhere easier and help other people go somewhere easier. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, so I think that if you all, anybody that's listening, can take take an account of what software version are you on? Are you on software version that from your parents before you moved out the house, before you went to high school, before you went to college, or before you got your first job, or after your first divorce, or your first marriage? What mental software are you on right now? Have you upgraded? You know, sometimes people know that there's, like for example, my wife doesn't upgrade her apps because she's like, I don't want anybody spying on me, you know, which is understandable. We don't want Uncle Sam or Big Brother, Big Brother to spy on you. Of course, we don't want this, but she's like, I'm not gonna upgrade it. I'm like, babe, we get lost every time we're going somewhere, you know. So I think to myself, okay, this is so I'm like, let me take my map out. She said, no, let me try it. Let me try my map. I'm like, this happens every time. And it'll say rerouting. And so we'll go somewhere. We'll go somewhere and I'm like, okay, we're 10 minutes away. Rerouting. 15 minutes away. Rerouting. And I'm thinking to myself, babe, let's just turn this off. Let me help us get there. And so after a while, that 10-minute drive turns into 15 and 20 minutes. And then she said, okay, all right, you can use your map. And she'll say, I just don't like, so and so being able to monitor me. And understandable. And so sometimes when we continue using our old software, sometimes we have our own excuses that hold us back to get to other places. And sometimes these are valid excuses. Other times it's like, well, if you're going to, we have to use our mind at all times. So our mental map needs to be at the highest upgrade as possible so that we can get to where we are faster, more efficiently. And so it is being able to recognize, okay, I didn't update my software past 92, you know, mental map 98, or 2000 or 2011. I'm not sure what Windows Pro or Google Maps version 16, 2023 version. So we have to, when we're upgrading also the maps, we have to be able to know when we have new patterns. If we don't have any new patterns, then we're just saying we're updating the map, but it's still the same. Because if we're still getting the same result, then more than likely we're doing the same exact thing. We're going the same path in the same car, in the same, mindset. And if we are really our best well-wishers, if we really care about ourselves, we're going to analyze why we go this way, why we don't go that way. And if someone says, for example, hey, there's traffic over here, but based off of your experience, when I go at this time and this path, there's normally not traffic. It's best to generally use helpful experiences to overcome sometimes these alternative suggestions. Because sometimes the map may have like 20 different or 5 different suggestions. And some of those suggestions, like, why would I even take this suggestion? I don't know if you've ever, using a map and it has like 5 different points, and one's like 1 hour and the other one's like 5 hours. I'm thinking, why would I take the 5-hour destination? Why would that? Unless I want to take a scenic route and get lost somewhere in the fields. But generally, we don't do that. We want to get somewhere efficiently. So sometimes it's necessary to, when we have the proper understanding, if somebody gives a suggestion that's more than likely not beneficial and they really never give any beneficial information. So we have to also understand the person giving the information. So let me also make that point clear. Because if the person has no idea what they're talking about, but they're giving suggestions on how to get somewhere, then you may be better off with your own devices instead of somebody else's devices. I mean, right?
Definitely.
So we are human beings, and now we are in a position, or soon we'll be in a position where we have so much responsibility. So it's our responsibility to make this change, to be able to make adjustments on our own, in our own mental mapping. What are your thoughts?
Actually, when you were mentioning being able to take responsibility of our, you could say, mental mapping, I mean, it's truly a fact, because actually there's a quote or a saying, if we don't stand for something, we fall for everything. And sometimes, as you had rightly pointed out, there are other alternative suggestions that are not at all really for our best interest or benefit. And so I guess that's almost like it requires us as an individual to do the necessary research to find, should I go with a Garmin? Should I go with a, wasn't it like a Tom or something like that? There was a TomTom or something like that, in terms of all these different options.
Yeah.
Waze, Google Maps, and I, use, Apple CarPlay, or, all these different options. And we have to see what will actually be most beneficial to us, and that will actually help us reach our desired goal. Otherwise, just as you had pointed out a little earlier about getting lost in the fields, you might find yourself somewhere where you don't want to be.
Right.
And I've actually had that experience before, where just, trying to use a certain map, and you thought that it was going to take you through a legit road, and you end up finding yourself on a private road in the middle of someone's property. And you're like, wait a second. This is not an actual road at all. This is just someone's private road, you know. So
Right.
sometimes you don't want to be in certain places.
Yeah, especially after certain times. Can't stay here.
Can't stay here.
Right. But yeah, that is true. Sometimes if we don't properly analyze the way we go, we can end up in a destination where we're just like, ooh, never expected to be here.
Yeah.
I'm going to adjust this camera just really quickly, so hopefully we can get better. All right, you all are going to get up close and personal today. All right, I guess it's even better. So, are we still crooked? Maybe not. All right.
I just look crooked, that's all.
So, all right. So one of the things too that when we think about the mental maps is that mental map affects our body. So, for example, when we are in a position in which we're getting ready to experience something, sometimes our mind is going to affect our body. There's no way around that. So if you feel, for example, that there's this negative thing coming up, this accident, this roadblock, then generally our breath becomes, it's not paced. It's just our muscles get tensed.
Yep.
So many things happen to our body when we are in a position when we're scared or when we're happy. And so these things, when we're going down a particular road and we experience that this road normally there's accident here, or we almost, somebody cuts us off right at this exit. Generally, every time we come in, somebody tries to cut us off, then we are going to be a little nervous coming up to this, maybe even scared. And so that fear manifests in the body, and over a period of time, it continues to happen, and that what was just mental now becomes a physical ailment, because we do not know how to properly get around this person or get around this exit or properly merge on somewhere. So in our interactions, if we have an experience that does not, in the past, has not been the best, then that is going to affect our body, because our mind is so powerful and our body is helpless, and it's based off what the mind feels. What does it say, mind over matter?
Yeah, mind over matter. The one thought that came to mind when you were mentioning this aspect of how our bodies are changing when we experience either a traffic jam that we know is going to take 2-3 hours, because that can be really frustrating sometimes. Or even if road rage, someone cuts us off when we're trying to exit or change lanes and they won't let us over. That happens sometimes as well. When these situations come up and when we allow them to, shall I say, when we think it's something that we can just pass it off and just sweep it under the rug, but we don't realize that we're still holding on to that moment. And it stays with us not only the entire day, but then it stays with us for however long we keep it. And it has like a snowball effect, because we think it's just something small that you can, again, tuck and sweep under the rug, but it'll follow you to a point where, again, let's say that it could either use the example of road rage, or even if in a relationship with another person, you'll find that it'll affect other areas of your life. So when you think, oh, I love taking morning drives on Sunday, and just, look at the leaves change colors in the fall, or, whatever it may be, just take a drive by the river or by the sea. And then later on, you may find, when I say later on, meaning could be later on in life, when you are trying to do that little joyride, or just, hey, let me just take a Sunday morning drive, that trauma or that stress that you experienced early on, it has gotten so big that now you even have this heart palpitations, and this anxiety when trying to drive. And you can't enjoy your little Sunday morning drives anymore, because all these things have built up so much over time, whether, again, relationships with another person, whether it's things that may have happened at the workplace, maybe it was road rage, some other time. Again, it unfortunately stays with us. And that's why sometimes I try to remind myself to check my bags or check my coat at the door. Checking my coat at the door, meaning, I'll just give you an example that, your coat is almost like your mental baggage, or all the stress and anxiety that you've just been carrying for a period of time. You literally have to check your stuff at the door, because otherwise you'll literally bring that into a new relationship or a new opportunity, and you may not realize it, but that old baggage could very well spoil your new opportunity or new chance to do something amazing. What to speak of learning something new, having new experiences, it'll ruin that for you. So definitely checking your coat at the door, or check your bag at the door. In fact, throw it in the garbage. Burn it.
Yeah, don't stow this away. Yeah.
Don't store it. Don't keep it.
Yeah.
Burn it,
Yeah.
Because, it actually does follow us. It stays with us. And that's one thing that's unique about the mind. Even if someone, well, I won't go too deep into that because I had another thought, but yeah, it's something that has to truly be addressed while it's small and manageable, before it becomes so large that it literally consumes us.
What would happen if someone allowed their mental map and the continuous path down the same route to have this disastrous effect? What could happen to one's life?
What happens to one's life? Well, as we were talking about, things starting small on a subtle level, and then as they start to manifest within the body, you start to see various different elements. Now, I will point out to you, I'm not a doctor.
I don't know,
but
about
I play
that.
one. But I play one on TV. But what I wanted to point out is that when they're small and we don't address them, they snowball. They get bigger. We're not able to manage them or properly handle them, and we don't seek proper professional advice and guidance and counseling, then sometimes we may find ourselves being emotional eaters. We start to eat even when we're not hungry. We're stressed, and tense. Start finding that we're eating a lot of times the wrong things. Or the things that are,
you don't see people, I'm just going to eat some carrots and some
celery.
and some peanut butter.
I'm so stressed out right now. I'm going to give me a glass of water.
I'm going to give me an apple. Give me a whole bag of apples.
Give me a bag of apples. You don't see that. You generally find people eating the fried foods, junk foods, things that are too salty, things that are too sweet, things that are too sour, too spicy, too extreme. Sometimes we may refer to those things as being foods in the mode of passion. Or things in the mode of in the mode of ignorance. For example, people may indulge in various forms of intoxication. To think that if I just drink or if I can smoke or inhale or snort or whatever it may be, that I am medicating myself. I am solving my problems, but at the same time, we're not at all addressing the heart of the situation. And we find that, again, with our health actually starts going down. So that could be hypertension, or you can say high blood pressure. You can find diabetes. You can find other ailments that are going on within the body. And before you know it, you find yourself, depending on how far down the road it goes and what path in terms of self-medication one does, someone may find difficulties with their internal organs wanting to fail. Meaning you may have liver problems, you may have kidney problems. Some individuals, due to their lifestyle, in terms of how they medicate themselves, whether through ice cream and potato chips, excessive binge eating or whatever like that, then, or again, whatever it is that they choose as their weapon of choice, could cause their arteries, again, if they're eating fried foods and stuff, cause the arteries to get clogged and blocked. Some people may, in fact, have heart attacks. And I mean, there's a whole, unlimited number of ailments that can show up in the body. And unfortunately, when it gets to that point, it's like if I would have paid attention to the signs early on, then maybe I could have addressed it while it was manageable, than to allow myself to get to a point where now I am on medication, pharmaceuticals, for the rest of my life.
Prescribed.
Yes, prescribed by a doctor. But
Yeah.
that, and it's actually unfortunate when you see those. It could be even loved ones, when you can see that wow, here's someone whose mental map did not get updated past the age of 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Where you see someone that looks like an adult in their 50s, 60s, 70s, but then when you really carefully look, you see that their mental map is actually nothing but a crayon drawn out map, finger painting, and they're like 4 years old, or they're a toddler, 2 years old, or something of that nature, and it's heart wrenching, when you see someone that's stuck in the past like that, and they don't get too far. So,
yeah, I apologies. I don't mean to laugh. I just had a visual of the crayon and just stick figures.
but you know what I mean.
But I know what you mean. And
this is our map, and you just draw it out with a crayon, and X marks the spot. And it's not the latest version, for lack of better words, and it's it's not going to let you know where the exits are, warning signs, just like you gave a perfect example of how a police officer may be up ahead and it gives you a notification, ding ding, there's a radar, what do they call those things, a speed trap, up ahead, warning, and you don't have any warnings, and things that you can try to address early on, they don't get addressed. And then again, you just find yourself in this cycle. It's like a revolving door. You just keep going through this whole cycle over and over and over again of just frustration and miserable and frustrated. And you don't get out sometimes.
And generally, thank you for mentioning that, because generally when we see people that are frustrated, it's because they normally try to do the same thing over and over again, the same way, and they say we're creatures of habit, right?
Yeah.
And
they're not able to flex.
They're not able to. This is difficult for us, and so when we're thinking about what is going on in the minds of people who are constantly frustrated, constantly disappointed, and stressed, we realize generally those people do not have the highest software, upgraded software to their mental maps, meaning that they're still choosing the same location, they're still going the same route, they're not doing anything different, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing it the same way. And so when we can acknowledge and we can easily recognize when we see someone older that's kind of hip or they're doing something that is different than people in their age range. And to be more specific, there are a lot of new terms that are being developed every day, understandings. And so in order to kind of stay in the know, we have to kind of understand what's happening. And some people don't want to understand what's happening because it's like, I already know what I know. I don't want to know anymore. Anything else is just unnecessary. But we actually appreciate when others are understanding or they know how to address something and how to navigate through a situation. And generally those people that know how to navigate through a certain situation they're always upgrading, updating their mental maps because they understand that there's so many different ways to do something. And you could do something properly or you can just do something improper. And it takes intelligence to be able to recognize, okay, I'm doing this properly, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have done this a little differently. Next time, I'm going to do this a little differently and just see where we go. Always, just like this idea of the rocket ship. So the rocket ship has its course, its destination. It doesn't go anywhere without a destination, there's always a destination. But there is technology within the rocket ship that's always adjusting, making adjustments whenever it's off course. Because there's so many different variables that are adjusting the trajectory of the rocket. And so we realize that we see that if this machine has all this expensive technology to keep it going in the correct way and not, go this other way, then this machine, I can say, should have even more technology.
Yeah.
Because we're the creators of that machine. So if we are able to have a mapping system which is always up to date, and we are open to following this up-to-date information, because there's a difference when we actually know how to get somewhere, but we're like, you know what, I'm going to go another way. And there's really no justification to going a different way. But when we do not hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we don't allow ourselves to go into a approved way of going that is efficient, helpful, and then we can't guide or we can't help others. We'll be one of those people that make suggestions that nobody listens to.
Backseat drivers.
Backseat drivers. Driving Miss Daisy.
Driving Miss Daisy.
The backseat driver. And so nobody will listen to us because we're not in a position to give any advice, because we don't even listen to proper advice, or we don't take the right route. Right route. Okay. So this is really important. Hopefully, this is making sense because when we having this human form of life is extremely valuable, and so the more we're able to identify where our stress comes from, where our happiness comes from, where our depression comes from, where our fear comes from, all these different indicators on our mental map, and we don't question, well, why am I fearful of this? Why am I, why don't I like locked doors? You know, or why don't I like,
No more locked doors.
why, well, you know, why don't I like the lights off? Why don't I need the lights on? Or why does eating so much make me happy? You know, all these types of things we have to question. We have to figure out, okay, is this the best? Is this the best for me? And I use food because, yes, food is necessary. It's a necessary part of one's daily life. We have to eat. And so in order to survive, we have to nourish ourselves. But sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, some people say, they don't say, let me get a bag of apples with some tahini or something, or let me just grab some spinach. I'm gonna go to town on this bag. Nobody does that, right? Name somebody that just says, I'm gonna binge on this bag of spinach. Nobody does that, you know.
Actually, I'll tell you something really stupid, and it's I think there's some guy on like one of those shorts on YouTube, and I guess he was at some store and he actually bought like multiple bags of not bags but containers of salad.
Salad.
It was like 4 or 5 salad containers. Okay, and so the guy that worked there at the store asked him, you know, or at this deli, it's like, what are you doing with all this salad? He says, and this is the customer. He says, and he touched his throat because he had like a device in his throat for his trachea so he can speak. And he says, after I do all this smoking and other forms of intoxication, I like to eat salads. So there is one person out there that eats a whole bunch of salad.
You know, that reminds me of.
But after he destroys his lungs,
right,
and therefore, you know, who knows? He may have even had, you know, some throat cancer or something like that. Who knows? But yeah.
That reminded me of the individuals that eat this unhealthy food but drink like diet something right after. Like, I'm gonna gorge myself, everything you can think of, just a buffet, and then, but you know what? I'm gonna finish with the diet Dr. Pepper. Because I care about my health.
Because I care.
You know, and so we think about, we have to think about these things because I'm 38, so my map, because I've been working on personal development for a long time, on a secular level, non-secular level, I feel like my map is pretty up to date. And at the same time, I know that people I went to school with are still using the same software in high school.
Yeah.
And they have not updated past software 2003.
No.
They're still on that software. And they, with no intentions of changing, because they're happy in where they are. And as someone who has, you know, counseling and all these other things, who've updated their software, I see my timeline sometimes and I'm like, wow, this used to cause happiness, but this is actually really not happiness. A lot of, and get it. I get it. Some people like to just get wasted.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, you got to do this every weekend, sometimes every day, just to overcome mental maps that you've had as a child. Every day you have to do this, or every week you have to do this. And it's like the rat on the wheel, it's just running.
I guess I'll be running.
Running home now, you know. and then all I see is on the timeline, they were running. And it just happens. It keeps happening, and some of these individuals have children who are now having children.
Yeah.
And they're still in the same software system.
Yeah. The parents passed it down to them.
Parents pass it down. They're passing. Here's my 2003 version. Here, take this. You know.
And it's 2023.
And it's 2023. This is my 2023 version.
It's a classic.
This is vintage. You know, so we're still passing down, you know, these same maps to our generations, and we're wondering why we're making the same decisions,
mistakes,
same mistakes.
Yeah,
and it is the same version of software that we're using that if we do not get past it, we'll have 5-6 generations on the same mental map software. Yeah. We're doing the exact same thing. We're not doing anything different. And whenever there's an opportunity to do something different, it's like, I don't know about that. Heard about that. Go ahead.
But so, just as you were pointing out, even when they have the opportunity to do something different, I'm not pointing fingers or anything of that nature. I'm just saying in general, most of those individuals that are on that outdated software, the classic, vintage, they still got to dust it off software that it's still on dial-up, is that, and again, this actually is a very serious conversation, even though we are laughing and smiling. Sometimes we have to look at ourselves and laugh at our own mistakes so that we can grow. Yeah. But we generally find a lot of individuals on the outdated software. Some of them are just happy where they are.
Right.
And that's okay, honestly. That's okay. But there are individuals who are constantly complaining, moaning and groaning, literally blaming everyone else to be the problem. Yet when they had the opportunity to do something about updating, if you want to keep your Atari, you know, if you want to keep your classic, keep it. But you can also get, you know, a PS5 if need be, or, you know, you can always upgrade, is my point. So if we find ourselves in that boat of just being miserable, complaining, oh, woe is me, you know, oh, wham. And we're just, you know, poopy pants about life, we have to remind ourselves that we actually had an opportunity, and we still have an opportunity to do something. You know, it's never too late to teach either a young dog or even an old dog new tricks. That's actually one of the points that's made in the NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming books, is that you're never too old to learn something new. You're never too old to acquire new tools, to work on your tool belt, your toolbox, your tool chest, your tool shed. You're never too old to learn and to acquire new things to actually help one advance and actually have a rich, fulfilling life, to actually really live.
They'll call you Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Tim the Toolman Taylor. All right, Norm. This old house. Still working on it. So there's always home improvements.
Very good.
Norm. And so it's interesting that just like we talk about driving responsibly, one has the choice, the free will. It is your human right to live responsibly and to hold oneself accountable and responsible for the decisions and how they move about in this world. Just like we hear the saying, you sow as you reap, or you reap as you sow. So at the end of the day, despite all of the situations that may occur around us, whether it's just too hot outside. I believe it's triple digits all this week here in Tulsa.
100. Hellish.
Hellish. Whether it's things that are happening outside, maybe it's other people, maybe it's mosquitoes. Again, we talked about temperature, the weather, whether it's too cold in the wintertime, or, we had that horrible storm for Father's Day, all these different things. Yes, happiness and distress, they come and go on their own accord. You don't have to work hard for problems to come.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just seems like they just come.
They just find you. Like, where's Waldo?
Where is Waldo? Present, things will come and go on their own accord. Again, happiness and distress, they come and go like the seasons, as we see in certain texts. But despite what takes place, we as an individual can still do something about it. We can change how we respond and react to the various stimuli in our environment. And again, when I say stimuli, it could be anything. It could be, someone that has a smiling face, or it could be, someone that's, as we had talked a little briefly earlier about road rage, it could have been someone that would have flipped you the bird, or whatever it may have been on the road. It could be anything. But we still have free will. We still have this freedom to choose how we respond to, again, the various stimuli in our environment.
And to the degree that we can recognize our free will, is that to the same degree we can change these mental maps.
Yeah.
So it's, if we don't feel like we have any free will, we're just I'm just gonna operate on Windows 03. And I'm not
Windows 95.
Windows 90. And some people still operate from memories 1960, 1971, 1975.
Working on them big mainframes. It's not even a computer. It's a computer.
It's a room.
But it's a whole room.
It's a whole room.
It's the mainframe. The whole room is filled with these things.
So if we don't recognize, I can change.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can. And then when we can do it,
you can do it. You can do it. You can do it, Coach.
When we can do it, then it allows us to be even more empowered, because we're now alchemists. We're able to make this change, and we're utilizing this human form of life properly. Because as you mentioned, we don't have to work hard for negative things to happen. We don't even have to work hard for good things to happen. They just seem to find us. However, to the degree that we can make these positive changes in our mental map and understand, okay, I need to do this a little differently, because I notice when I'm over around this person, I get a certain tension, or I get a little angry, or I get a little sad. I get all these different feelings, but without properly understanding where on the map this is, why it's happening, how we can affect it. What I'm not saying is that you can just people that are negative for you, you can see how they're not negative. If they are abusive or all these other things, you want to this here. Let me try to figure out how to best deal with this person that keeps my peace of mind. And so we have to make, if we have to, for example, if we have a family member we're not able to get away from, we have to be able to figure out how to codify this person in our life as a point in which we know, okay, so I'm gonna interact with this area, but I can look at this a different way. So in NLP, it talks about reshaping an experience or using even different verbiage. Instead of this person is now a source of help now, because now I know that interacting with this person's really trying to, this is their call for love, but they don't really know how to properly love.
That's true.
They don't really know how to properly love. So this is the best they got. Yeah. And even though it's terrible when we're experiencing it, we're learning from them. Yeah. We don't want to be in a position where we're hanging out with people that are abusive. That's not really helpful, because we are who we associate with. And we can understand people a little better and know, okay, they're not really, they may be, for example, racist, but they were taught this from an early age. They're still operating on, childhood software, because whatever they saw, whatever they watched is still programmed in their mental maps. Yeah. And so because it's programmed in their mental maps, then they don't really know anything different.
Yeah. And they've never questioned it.
And they never questioned it.
A sign of intelligence is to ask questions.
Good questions.
Yes, good questions.
Yes. Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl. Yeah, you have to ask good questions. Why do we do what we do? Mm-hmm. Why do we think the way that we think and respond and behave and so forth the way that we do? Mm. It's interesting that in today's society, even when someone asks that question, hey, how are you today? Mm. Or do you have any plans for the weekend? Or, what are some goals that you're working on or working towards? No one has an answer. Mm. They may say, oh, I'm doing fine, or they may ask you the question back. If you say, hey, what's up? They say, hey, what's up? But there really isn't, we don't see deep, meaningful interactions. We generally see shallow interactions. Mm. And as long as we remain shallow in life, we will never be able to taste the sweetness of life. Mm. We'll never be able to truly experience, like we hear from the great Jim Rohns. He says, let it touch you. Let the experience, be touched. Let the world touch you, experience things. And part of experience things is also having childlike curiosity. It doesn't mean that you do stupid stuff, or be naive.
Ooh, look, a fork in the socket.
but to ask questions,
right.
Because children, they're great at that.
Yeah.
Please clean your room. Why? Eat your vegetables. Why?
Yeah.
Please take a bath tonight. Why? They're constantly asking why.
Yeah.
But we should have that same curiosity, meaning we should want to know and understand. Mm. Because when we start to understand more about ourselves, then we actually start to value ourselves. Mm. We start to actually appreciate what we're able to do. Mm-hmm. Then we start understanding areas that we need work to work on.
Yeah.
You know, our strengths and our weaknesses, I should say. But there really isn't any such thing as a weakness if we don't, you know.
Areas of opportunity.
They're areas of opportunity. Thank you. They're not weakness.
Yes.
They're areas of opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's true. It really is an area of opportunity to grow. And so the only person that is actually stopping us from advancing, from growing, from having deep, meaningful relationships and interactions and a deep, meaningful, fulfilling life, the only person that's stopping us is ourselves.
So I'm going to say this, and we'll kind of conclude here in a few minutes. But one of the things that you had mentioned that I just kind of went down a rabbit hole, like Alice in Wonderland. I just went down that hole real quick.
And I'm just going to sit here like a Chester cat and smile.
So you mentioned about strengths and weaknesses, and so I thought about the term weakness, and whenever and how powerful that word is, because we say, "Oh, this is my weakness," then we automatically there's no ability for us to change. This is my weakness. It's my kryptonite.
Accept me as I am.
Take me. Take everything that I'm not. You know. So yeah. we see this, or we hear this, and keeps being replayed in our mind over and over. My weakness. My weakness. My weakness.
Beating ourselves down.
We're literally assaulting ourselves with our words.
Shot myself in the foot.
Shot myself in the foot. Yeah, but just using the word area of opportunity instead of weakness, it's like, oh, this is opportunity. Opportunity's knocking.
And I'm an opportunist.
An opportunist. And so when we think about, yes, this is no longer a weakness. This is an area where I can make changes.
Yes.
And that's so much more empowering than, oh, this is my strength and that's my weakness. You know, and when we so this is one slight modification of words. Just a slight modification of words, but it means so much. And if we are able to be our own friend and learn how to properly modify words to allow us to have benefit and if we can use proper verbiage, it can make a change in our mental maps. It will make a change in our mental maps, because you should try it. Don't take our word for it. Just you try it yourself. When something you normally have that you may find difficult, just say, "This is my area of opportunity," and just see how different that feels. How it sounds here and how it feels here. And then instead of being a victim, you're like, I'm empowered.
Yeah. We, as human beings, it's almost like we get so caught up in that victim mentality.
Self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. It's really sad. Really sad. But we have opportunities for
change.
For
growth.
change.
Yeah. And to the degree we can recognize these opportunities, then to that same degree we will make leaps and bounds in our mental maps. And people actually want to ask us, hey, I noticed like you're really successful in this, or you're really happy. You don't seem to have to take all forms of different stimulants to be happy. This is natural.
a natural high.
And the funny thing is, it's sad. It's also sadly funny. Is that people who are genuinely happy and don't need stimulants to make them happier, people look at them as weird. Why is what how? How? You know, how? And so, and it's sad that those people asking those questions cannot see that this can be attainable by changing our mental maps. Yeah. So we went a little over time, but I think today was quite nice. I hope that you all have been able to take a few points, or even if it's 1 point, our time here is successful. Because we can't get our time back, but as long as we can properly help others with their time and being empowered, then we've done our service as servants to you all. So anyway, thank you so much, and take care. Happy Friday.
Happy flexing.
Flexing.